Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Off the Bandstand. My name is Christian Wiggs. I'm your host as always. Today's episode is Sparky Thomason, who may be the most interesting jazz musician in Austin. This guy has absolutely no shortage of stories, and any major jazz musician that I referred to in the show or in the podcast today, you'll probably hear him immediately go, "Oh yeah, in 1 second I have a story about that person." He seems to be connected to just about everybody or have a story about everything, and I was absolutely here for it. I loved every second. We're trying to keep the episodes around 90 minutes, but far be it from me to be someone who stops a good thing from happening. So this one comes in right at under 2 hours, but I promise it's all quality content and you're gonna love everything that he has to say. Support Sparky with all of his stuff that he's got going on. You can find him on Facebook. You can certainly hear him through different groups on YouTube of different recordings of him with all these other groups. But he also has a podcast called Lone Star Jazz, which highlights all of the jazz scenes that are happening all across the state of Texas. He's really doing the Lord's work by bringing us all together and doing that, and it's been really great to keep up with and kind of know exactly where everyone's playing. He's been very on top of all of those performances pre-COVID, obviously, and he took a short hiatus while we were all just kind of, having our mandatory vacation, and then now he started the episodes back up again, so you can definitely go and check those out, and I know you're going to love it. He's just a great conversationalist and very entertaining to talk to, have a conversation with, and listen to on his own podcast as well. So a couple quick announcements. These episodes are going to be dropping on Thursdays right around 7 Central Standard Time. We post them on all of the social media outlets, but also if you want to subscribe to this channel, then you will get a notification every time we upload a new one. So maybe it's going to be a little earlier than 7. We upload them a little earlier in the day. So that way you might be able to get some early access to it, but you can definitely expect them on Thursdays, no later than 7 p.m., fingers crossed. Another quick announcement is my third album finally is coming out tomorrow, Friday, July 24th, on all of the platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon, Google Play, and Bandcamp. And then also if you want to purchase a physical CD, I would greatly appreciate it. And it's on my website at christianwiggs.com/store. And you can find out more things on that website about all the other stuff that we've got going on. So anyways, without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. It's episode 4, Sparky Thomason. This is Off the Bandstand.
Man.
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
How you doing? Let me turn you up a little bit. Cool.
Yeah.
Doing good, man.
All right, let me see. Okay, perfect. I think mine is working as well.
I was afraid you'd be wearing a suit or something, so I would look like the sloppy one. So this is cool. Thanks for dressing down for me.
Oh, no, of course, man. Well,
you're so dapper.
Well, that's something that I actually got I guess playful flack for a lot, whenever we were gigging. So a distant far off land ago when
no kidding. Yeah.
But I think the tell of that was Thomas Wendlinski who was actually our last guest on episode 3, your episode 4. He was at school one day and went to JO rehearsal, and Sarah Milligan was like, "Why are you all dressed up? Why are you in a black and white penguin suit?"
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, I've got a gig with Christian Wiggs after this." And she was like, "Yeah, that looks like a Christian Wiggs gig outfit." And I was like, all right. So no, man, but this whole thing is just a super casual. It's like Off the Bandstand, right? So this is just us as human beings just hanging out. Yeah,
cool.
Informal.
And I got my Wendy's, so
awesome, man. I've got some coffee. We've got some Off the Bandstand coffee mugs coming in the mail.
Nice.
And so, but in the meantime, I figured that the Sands Hotel is relevant enough to jazz that it will.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
It will do. Maybe we'll swap it out for a Mr. Rogers mug here and there.
When I played at the Moscow Jazz Festival, the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival many years ago, and I got to play with Al Gray. I did a jam session, and he did a clinic, and he talked about that album Live from the Sands. And somebody asked him about Sinatra. He said, "Oh, Sinatra's the man. I will never sleep." And he talked about how Sinatra went to the casino owners, and because they were just going to put Basie and Sinatra's name on the marquee. Sinatra went to him and said, "No, this is like an all-star band. This is like the New York Yankees of jazz. You need to put everybody's name on there." And that's how that happened, was because of Sinatra.
Jeez, really? Well, what a mensch. Sometimes I talk a little smack about Sinatra because he can't defend himself. But no, like it just not smack, but I'm like, oh well, there's like more out there, because it's like the go-to. It's like people saying, oh, jazz saxophone player is Kenny G, right? So it's like it's just that's well, I guess the Kenny G would be Michael Bublé. Maybe I should stop taking shots while we're on the record. Maybe I should just dial that back. But no, man, I think that's incredibly admirable of him, and that's great. I mean, everything that I've read from, there's a James Kaplan, 2-part biography of Sinatra. It's like Frank, the voice, and Sinatra, the chairman. And I started on Sinatra, the chairman, and it's crazy, man. There's a lot of like really insane stories about that dude, and I think it's pretty undeniable that guy had some pretty good close friends in high places. Right,
but I think what you were going to mention is like, but what Al Gray was talking about was like sticking up for musicians.
Yeah,
Sinatra always, sticking up for the cats, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a friend who told me a story about his stepfather or something. Whenever he was younger, stepfather goes to Vegas. He wins big at one of the casinos, and they're like, all right, like to you and all your friends for like winning big at this like craps table or whatever, we're going to give you all front row tickets to see Sinatra here like tonight. And so they're like, oh man, that's great. So they all like go, and the whole day just get trashed. I mean, just, constantly drinking, gambling away, doing this whole thing. And then apparently they get to the show, they sit down on the front seat. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the voice, the chairman, Frank Sinatra. And he said that his stepfather, the very next thing he remembers after the curtains coming up was the curtains going down. He blacked out and he missed the whole show, man.
No good.
I know. Well, and you almost got to think like what that was like for Sinatra too, and if he did any crowd work with it, because like there's these just like clowns in the front row, right, who are just snoring away.
Hey, where you from?
Right. And he was funny too, man. Like if you listen to, especially like that Sands album, he was he would just do monologues. He would engage the crowd, do a whole thing. So it's not a far fetch to think that he probably poked fun at some.
Now, what's your shirt, Corey? Who's that?
Oh yeah, it's
Corey Henry. I was gonna say, I thought that's who it was because I've got my Jacob Collier shirt.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so we're representing. Yeah.
I liked your taste. Yeah, that was another thing too. I was like, well, what am I? It's not so much calculated as what am I going to wear, but it's like, oh, well, let's like do things that are sort of thematic to like other players. And man, I saw Corey Henry over at the Blue Note. When was this? This must have been the second time I went to New York, which was in 2018. I saw Corey Henry with Taryn Lockett on drums, and it was mostly just them. And then he was like, yeah, it's my birthday. It's my birthday week. So he was doing a week there at Blue Note, and he just brought all of his friends up, like Macy Gray and like all these different people. And it was just like a big jam session. And I think it was like one of the most spiritual musical nights of my life. Like it just like that.
I need to check him out more. I'm really only familiar with him, what he's done with Jacob Collier, but I need to check more out of Corey. I hear people talk about Corey Henry. So I need to.
Well, have you checked out like the Snarky Puppy stuff?
A little bit, but not much with that features Corey Henry. So
sure, yeah, man.
I started getting into Snarky Puppy one because the two that Jacob Collier did with them.
Right.
Also, I wrote a chart on Shofacon.
Oh, cool.
A chart on Shofacon, yeah. for Hutto High School, because I teach there. They did it for one of their festival tunes 3 years ago at Fredericksburg, and actually Bob Reynolds judged them,
Oh,
and he
cool.
put it on the podcast. Hey, and here's a chart of my here's a band doing Shopicon, and it was the intro to my chart on Shopicon.
Nice, man. That's amazing.
Yes.
Dude, I gotta check out that chart, man. Like whenever, if you have recordings, send me the chart. And
I have a recording, but I've lost. I need to reprint it, so I need to redo it. I've got it printed out, but I need to redo it.
Sure.
On the computer or something.
Well,
and send to Bob Reynolds.
Yeah. Well,
Bob
we'll make sure to the very first gig that you and I do after the quarantine ends, then we'll make sure to throw that chart in there. That'll be great.
There you go, man.
And speaking of Jacob Collier, or go ahead.
And actually, Bill King does it. The King William Collective. They did it. That's where I got the idea. And of course, they've got a smaller group, so you may want to just get Bob Stork's chart on it, because it would be more. Because I fleshed mine out for 4 trumpets, 4 big bands. So.
Very cool.
I can think words up a little bit, like I like them. So.
Yeah. Well, man, speaking of Jacob Collier, because like you're repping that, I would be remiss if I didn't start talking about Jacob Collier at least a little bit after I went on about Corey Henry. But man, like, were you going to go to that show that he was doing here?
We had 6 tickets.
Yeah.
We were already. I mean, it'll still happen. It'll just happen when it happens, So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were ready to go.
Yeah, I was too, man. I bought like even the VIP thing, which I was like, I was like, I'm just gonna do that because I went and saw him in the same week. It was crazy, man. In the same week that I saw Corey Henry in New York, it was like an all-star lineup. I saw Cyrilla May, which I don't know if you know Cyrilla May, but she's unbelievable. It's like French jazz singer, just ridiculous. I've got like a funny story about that, but Cyrilla May, Corey Henry, Jacob Collier, and then Kurt Elling was putting on his big thing up in New York. It was The Big Blind, which was his radio drama premiere. And
I was going to ask how many times you've seen Kurt live.
How many times did you? Okay, so let's see. I've seen him. I've seen him in Houston. I've seen him in Austin. I've seen him in Denver. And I've seen him in New York twice. So I saw him in Austin, and then it was New York.
He plays One World a lot. Did you see him out there?
Since I've been hip to him, he hasn't played One World. He played the McCullough Theater in with his quintet. But I guess so. It was at first it was Austin, then it was New York, then it was Houston, then it was Denver. And then I watched 2 sets in New York. So I guess I've seen 6 sets and 5 separate. Yeah.
I love Kurt Elling, but I know you're the Kurt Elling. I know he's your guy. So.
Yeah, man. He's
there's 2 people that I've never seen. I would drive anywhere and pay just about anything within reason. Kurt Elling is one, and Yvonne Lenz is the other one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Yvonne's getting up there, but Kurt's been to Austin a bunch, but I've always had gigs.
Yeah.
It seems like every time he's played One World, we've been closing out the Temple Jazz Festival. It's always that same Saturday in March that we can't go. Yeah. Man,
well, I had gigs lined up. I think almost every date I've seen him. And then I've like, and maybe this is bad to say that I've bailed on gigs, but I either it wasn't like fully in the calendar or it was just a consideration.
Just left the date open.
Yeah. And then I was like, I'm not going to, there was one, like whenever we were playing the Steakhouse gig every Friday before all of this. I told them, I was like, look, I love having this residency. I just need like this one night off, which if you're doing every Friday, and you're cool with the venue owner and the GM and everything, they're cool with it. I was just like, I got to go be at this thing, man. And it was life-changing. And every single subsequent time, it has just become more and more and more and more life-changing. Seeing him, especially with different size groups. But I mean, there's nothing that you can beat besides seeing his quintet. Because I mean, you got Kurt and you got Stu Mindeman. I don't know if you know that guy. He's like ridiculous dude. And then Clark Summers, who has been somewhat of an informal mentor to me in a few ways, just very informally, but just over time we've met up in different cities and exchanged emails and such. And then John McLean is just a ridiculous guitar player. And then, the drum chair kind of rotates, but it's never like not happening. You know, like Ulysses or Adonis Rose or Kendrick Scott or, you know, like all these different people.
Yeah, none of those guys can play a lick. Yeah, they're all.
Yeah. But
the guys nobody you get's gonna suck. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And
that's how I was. Well, see, and that's how I was with Wynton Marsalis. You know, back in the mid '80s when I was getting out of college, joining the Air Force Band. There was a period there, 85, 86, 87, where I saw Wynton probably 60 times.
Man, David, that's amazing, though.
Yeah, and that was the Black Codes from the underground time. That was J Mood.
Yeah.
He was transitioning from, you know, Branford, Kenny Kirkland, Bob Hurst over to Marcus Roberts and the quartet on the J Mood album. I saw him audition so many sax players after Branford left up in Dallas. I mean, there was a sax player every night, and all of them total badasses. James Carter one night, then he had to fly back for exams, and then Craig Handy the next night.
Yeah.
And then Don Braden the next 2 nights. I mean, nobody sucks, you know, and they're all, you know, they're all incredible. And I saw Fareed Barron when I brought him to San Antonio the first time. And I saw Fareed Barron play his very first gig with him. And then Fareed was really young. And so Fareed got out of the band for a little while and moved to San Antonio. And he joined the Air Force Band. And he was a neighbor of mine. He lived right down the street. And his son and my son Wynton used to play together in the backyard.
Oh, man.
Fareed was taking lessons with John Moore at St. Mary's, taking classical lessons. And didn't have a car, so he'd have to get rides to gigs. And, you know, we started gigging after I was in the Air Force Band. And so we started gigging a lot. And Fareed, super guy.
Man.
And then it comes full circle when I was in Temple with the Temple Jazz Orchestra, in Europe with the Temple Jazz Orchestra. We had got done playing at Montreux. And we're back at the hotel at 2:00, and I turn on, you know, one of the TV stations, and it's Montreux Jazz Festival from whatever year. From years back, and it's Sun Ra playing on there, and they're in the whole costumes and everything, and they're playing and chanting and doing what Sun Ra does. It's sounding great, but it's out. And then the piano player starts playing. The piano player's burning, and they move the camera over, and I'm half asleep, you know, I'm almost all the way out, and that's Fareed Barron on piano. No, woke my roommate up. That's Fareed, no way. And sure enough, it's Fareed Barron on piano playing with Sun Ra. So comes around full circle.
Sparky, one of the things that I think everybody in town admires so much about you is not only that you're like such a killing player, but you have no shortage of stories, and they are all just like banger stories. Like they're all amazing.
I mean, I've been around for a long time. I guess that's the main thing.
Sure. Well, man, like I guess I was curious to ask a couple of things, and I'll try to space them out. But so in your profile picture on Facebook, was that just happenstance where you like came across Tony Bennett, or were you playing with him, or like what was the deal?
No, it was happenstance. We were at the Temple Jazz Orchestra, and we went to New York to play the second to last IAJE conference. Probably early 2004, 2005, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was in New York, and we were in the lobby at the Hilton on Fifth Avenue. And we're waiting to get checked into our room. So Tom Fairley, the band leader, is checking us in. And we're just in the lobby hanging out. And there's all these luminaries going through. There's Toshiko Akiyoshi. There's Frank West. There's Bob Minzer. There's, you know, everybody. And pretty soon you become immune to it. So what? There's, you know, there's Ted Curson, big deal. There's, Jimmy Heath, so what? But then all of a sudden I turn over my shoulder, you know, because everybody that comes through is legendary.
Sure.
And after a while, you start becoming immune to it. And then I look over my shoulder and it's like, oh! And it was like, guys, it's Tony Bennett. Tony freaking Bennett. We turn around, it's Tony Bennett. We're just like, we got to get a picture. And it's too big for all of us.
Sure.
We've got to get a picture with Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can smooth a little bit, but that was even out of my league.
Yeah.
Greg Bashera, our tenor player, is like a really good, he's a super nice guy from Waco, really good smoozer. And I'm just like, Greg, you got to go talk to Tony and get him to take a picture of this. So Greg goes over, and Tony's, like with the entourage, got like 5 or 10 people with him.
Sure.
And Tony goes over, Mr. Bennett, we're a big band from Temple, Texas. We know you're really busy. Would you please take a picture with the band? Oh, yeah, sure, man. So he took a whole bunch of pictures, and Tony's got his arm around me, and I still haven't watched that UT player. It was 20 years ago. I'm sure I've watched it at least once. But, yeah, that's that picture will always be on my Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, somebody, if I could see him live, his tickets are probably out of my price range now. I know he's been.
Oh, awesome. Dude, you'd be surprised, man. I've seen him twice since he's come through, and he came through like twice, and it pretty crazy. He came through twice within like 3 or 4 years. I remember I went and saw him. I guess it must have been 2016. Must have been 2016. I think it was in like May or something at Bass Concert Hall. And then I was supposed to be up in like one of the rafters or whatever, the mezzanine. And one of the people was just like, yeah, if you want to pay $10 extra, we can put you in the 5th row. And I was like, what? I was like, I'll just give you 50 and like we'll call it good, because I feel like 10 is like a crime. So I did it, and man, like it was absolutely incredible. He comes out on stage, just like with grace, like the open arms thing, like every time he comes on stage, it's just like, and which I think is such a beautiful sentiment too, because, when you're at his level and the people he's played with and all these things, you could be like the biggest asshole and nobody would say anything. You could do anything you want, but he always is just like, has this, and I mean, I guess from your experience with him, he was nice off stage, but even on stage, he just has this demeanor of like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like he never takes it for granted, which was amazing. And, so he plays the whole set. And what I loved was, as opposed to like a traditional sense of where you'd let everybody go around and take solos, which I was kind of like, I didn't have a problem with it. He didn't do that. He would play like once through the form, and then they would just transition to another tune. So he probably played 25 tunes in an hour. Oh, yeah. Like it wasn't so much about, I'm going to do this and then like everybody's going to go around and everybody's going to take a chorus. Right. It was like, I'm just going to, take as much stuff as possible. And then
a gig like that, I mean, that's more a band like that. I mean, it's more about Tony.
Sure.
It is about, and you didn't come to hear necessarily nameless piano player from somewhere. Unless it's Bill Charlap,
Right.
That would be different.
If you played a gig with Bill Charlap and you didn't let Bill Charlap take a chorus on every single tune, that would be the crime. But yeah, for sure.
When I got to play with Bill, he was still relatively unknown. This was at that same Moscow Jazz Festival. He was still relatively unknown because there were so many named people.
Yeah.
Bill Waters, Al Gray, Christian McBride. These are just people I did jam sessions with.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to go, and you just keep going because I'm just going to go.
I literally could. Ben Wolf, Kareem Riggins, Ray Brown. Yeah. I mean, I could go for Hank Jones.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude, Sparky, you're
This is the Lionel Hampton Jazz Festival in Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah.
And I was still at the university. I was doing my master's at the University of Utah, but I was older. I was 30, something.
Sure.
And we took a small group in the guitar ensemble up to we played at the Moscow Jazz Festival, and every night there was a jam. There'd be a big concert, 2.5-hour concert. Then there'd be the jam session at the hotel, and everybody was there. And that's where Ben Wolf actually told me, because he was playing with Diana Krall at the time, who I got to talk with about 15 minutes. She was waiting on her limo to whisk her to the airport to go to be on the Leno show.
Man.
So I get to hang with her and talk with her for about 15 minutes.
How was she? Was she nice?
Yeah, that was all right. And then later that night, Ben Wolf was like, Spark, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm the first one he told that he was leaving Diana Krall to go back to Harry Connick Jr.'s big band.
Whoa.
He was like really, we all get nervous about, hey, what am I going to tell the band leader Ben Wolf was really nervous. Now, he'd had a few too, but
Sure.
he was really nervous what he was going to tell Diana Krall that I've got to go back on the road because Harry Connick Jr. pays more.
Sure. That's insane.
But he was really nervous about that. So we all have to do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian, I've got to sub out your gig. I'm sorry, but
yeah, I gotta go and play with this other. Gotta go play with this other schmuck. You may have heard of him, Harry Connick Jr. Yeah. No.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. Well, like it's kind of funny. Like, not to just totally go back to Kurt a lot, but there's a Sydney Symphony Orchestra concert that you can find the full thing on YouTube, and it's incredible. I mean, just like so many great charts.
I've listened to Nature Boy on that probably 1,000 times.
It's amazing, man. And then there's like more cuts on there of arrangements that were like Lawrence Hopgood arrangements that they did, but then didn't lay it down on a record. Like there's a great Stardust, if you haven't checked that out. Really, really cool. But in between, whenever he's doing banter, I found like a full thing rather than just the clips of the songs. And he's like, yeah, like, let me just introduce the band again. It's like getting near the end. And he gets over to the drummer, and it's Kobe Watkins. And he's like, yeah, he's like, Kobe's going to be leaving us or this is his last gig with us because he's going to leave us for some other guy. He's like, oh, what's this guy, Sonny Rollins? And he left to go play with Sonny Rollins, which is like, at that point, like, you can't even be mad if somebody leaves the band.
No.
Like, yeah.
That's definitely a move up the food chain. Okay, yeah. I have a Sonny Rollins story. The one time, so Fiesta Jazz Festival in San Antonio, we used to play that every year, either with the Air Force Band that I was in or San Antonio Jazz Orchestra when I was in that. One year we had to, and one year I went to St. Mary's and I helped John run the festival. Mm-hmm. It had rained a lot, so we had to move the festival indoors to Lila Cockrell Theater, and that was the year Sonny Rollins came and played. And there were a whole bunch of people. The Air Force Band I was in, we backed Bill Watrous. Let's see, the Army Jazz Ambassadors were there when they were really good. The Longhorn Jazz UT Jazz Ensemble was there. Shane Pitch was actually still a student there. Steve Hawk was a doctoral student at UT. That's how long ago that was. So Sonny Rollins is headlining it, and I had gotten there way early because I'm helping John run the festival, and I had put my stuff in some room that later became Sonny Rollins' green room.
Oh no!
All my stuff's down there, and I'm having to change out of my Air Force uniform back into civvies to help, so I can enjoy the rest of the festival and help with it, whatever.
Right.
And so, but Sonny Rollins is warming up. And I'm just like, I've heard all these stories about how irascible Sonny Rollins can be. And so I'm just like, and I'm grown, I'm 25, 26 years old. I'm just like sitting there debating whether to knock on the door. It's like, oh, I need stuff, but I really don't need to get yelled at. So anyway, after about two minutes, I'm like, knock on the door. It's like, yeah, Mr. Rollins, can I come get my stuff? I left my stuff in there. And he opens the door. I think it's because he saw my Air Force uniform.
Yeah.
His demeanor changed immediately because he's pro-military. He's like, yeah, young man, come on in, yeah.
Oh, man.
Hey, you want some fruit? Because he had the whole fruit thing, because he's the headliner. Hey, you want some watermelon or some fruit or whatever? I was like, no, Mr. Rollins, I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you. And he was there. He had wife beater shirt and a floppy hat and was warming up. And he started talking to me. Well, how do you like what do you play? I said, well, I'm a trumpet player. I said, what's your name? And he started basically interviewing me. Well, how do you like the Air Force Band? It's great. Thank you, Mr. Rollins. And so we talked for a little bit. And then later that night when Sonny plays, and he's with his quartet, he's on stage, and he used a wireless mic, and they couldn't get the wireless mic to work. And he's doing the first tune, Tenor Madness, and, doing it pretty quick.
Sure.
And the audience can't really hear him, but I'm standing between Bill Watrous and Shelley Berg and Bruce Silva, the lead player for the Army Jazz Ambassadors. And we're just going nuts because Sonny, sparks are flying off the horn and everything. And he's playing great, but nobody in the audience can hear him except the first couple rows. But we're just freaking out. Yeah. And the audience, but he plays and plays and plays probably 12, 15 courses. And then we figured, okay, he's going to keep playing until the mic works.
Yeah.
He's testing the mic. He's going to keep playing. And then finally, after about 12 or 15 choruses, the mic comes on. The place goes crazy. He starts his solo over, plays another 12 to 15 choruses, and just burning. Sonny freaking Rollins. So 2.5-hour concert, Sonny Rollins plays. 5 tunes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
man.
That's what I'm talking about.
But like, if it feels good, then it like feels good, you know.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, another thing, like when you're Sonny Rollins, when you're at that level, even if you're like 3 levels below, no one can say anything. You know, you're just there along for the ride, man. Like, although I will say that like people who are not jazz musicians,
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna clear out like pretty soon, and I almost feel like that's better for the jazz musician because like, when people clear out of a room and then you have the people who stay after that and people stop clearing out, then you're like, this is who I'm playing for. You know, like it's almost that feeling of, yeah, these are my people.
When my wife and I when we lived in Utah, in Salt Lake, they have a Jazz at the Hilton, a regular once-a-month concert. And they bring people in. Jeff Hamilton was a regular. Dave Brubeck was a regular. And they'd bring all kinds of people in. We saw Bill Holman Orchestra was one of my favorites. Was incredible. They had Chick Corea and Origin one year, which was one of my 5 favorite concerts ever. Yeah. And it was obviously over a lot of the people's heads. Mm-hmm. And so Leah and I sat in the back, you know, nosebleed seats the first half, but then enough people had cleared out the second half, we were on the 10th row dead center because so many people had cleared out. Yeah. And they, you know, they're lost. They missed out. Yeah. Chick comes out and sees that the audience had cleared out a lot. And he goes, oh, I guess people had to catch the subway early. And Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, well, and I remember like that situation happening with me. Where did you see back in, I guess this was 2015, did you see at Bass, the Herbie and Wayne Shorter concert? Were you there?
Oh, no, but I mean, I've seen them before in Park City years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so, man, what they did, I mean, I think they played maybe 6 tunes, and they played for like 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Right.
And only one of those tunes was tonal. You know, so like the rest of it, and I mean, like they come out, and I think there was like a conflict or something going on when the Grammys had happened before, but Herbie was going to get the Lifetime Achievement Award, you know, and so they were like, yeah, we're filming this for PBS, so I guess it's out there somewhere. I haven't checked it out anywhere, but they were like, we're filming this for PBS, so we're gonna have Wayne Shorter come out and he's gonna give a speech, and then he's gonna present Herbie with the award. And so, you know, they like wheel Wayne out, you know, in the wheelchair, and you know, comes out there, and you know, it's just kind of like, Herbie Hancock is one of my favorite, you know, just doing his thing. And we were like, me and Nathaniel McKay were, you know, Natty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's out in California now doing the Air Force Band thing. Yeah. But we were sitting there at the time, and we were like, oh man, like, we were like kind of worried for Wayne, like if he was going to like make it through the thing, even though he's just an undeniable player. And so he gets through his speech, you know, like takes some minutes to regain his breath and get himself going. But then as soon as they started playing, you'd never guess. You would absolutely never guess that he had a single health condition. It was just like, boom. It was insane. And, you know, sure enough, people after about 20 minutes of that free shit,
right,
you know, the crowd started leaving, and they didn't say anything.
They want to hear him play "Speak No Evil" and "Maiden Voyage" and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and they're not doing that. That's not what, kind of like Miles. That's not what they're doing anymore.
Yeah, right. It's like been there.
So the same thing about the health thing. You know, when I was at that Moscow Jazz Festival, we'd go to the jam session, the jam sessions every night, and it's kind of sad to say, but all those guys like Al Gray and Lionel Hampton, who I got to meet, and Clark Terry, who I'd met before, you know, it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, you know, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. They're all in wheelchairs, you know.
Yeah.
And that was the really bummer part.
Yeah.
You know, the drummer part of the whole thing, because all these legendary people that, you know, we've seen on album covers, you know, Clark Terry, and you know, they're all in not so good health, but then once they pull the horn up,
they could smoke. They could smoke any young buck on the stage, man.
That's why they're them, yeah. And Clark Terry, you know, the night we saw him, it was him, Bud Shank, and Dave Friesen, you know, playing bass and doing all the double stops and stuff. And they were playing towards the end of this long 2.5-hour concert, and it was in the basketball gym at University of Idaho. So people could just leave or whatever. And so a lot of the main, quote unquote, main people, whatever that means, you know, had already played. So a lot of people cleared out. So I had moved from my nosebleed seats down to like the row because I wanted to see CT. I didn't care if he only played one note. I wanted to see CT.
Yeah.
And, but I was apprehensive about what he'd sound like because about 6 or 7 years ago, I was when I lived in San Antonio. You know, Jim Cullum, they had the Live at the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
And got all this crazy radio money and would rehearse at the Riverwalk for whatever artists they were bringing in, and they would run the charts. And they were going to bring in Clark Terry. Well, Mike Berglund was a trumpet player friend of mine in San Antonio, great player, lives in Waco now. And Mike was the rehearsal trumpet player. If they brought in a trumpet player, Mike would be that guy.
Sure.
But Mike couldn't do it. $200 rehearsal on a Wednesday at noon. Yeah, sign me up. I did the rehearsal. I got to be Clark Terry for the rehearsal. And then they gave me and Leah for, you know, free tickets to the gig. Well, so the next night at the gig, and I still have a picture of me and CT, so I need to frame it and put it up. But he was really sick and couldn't play that much. He was having to, you hear about him having to use the oxygen tank and all that. Well, that night was like that. He was playing the head at like one chorus, and that was it, and would have to go puff on the oxygen tank. So I was real worried 7-8 years ago what it was going to be at, in Moscow, Idaho. And so when I saw him, it wasn't like that at all. He played, and he was burning. It was like CT, you know, up to about D, E flat, but just like playing 5 or 6 courses. And just like, and you know, there were like 5 or 6 of us older trumpet players who had all the CT albums. We had Serenade to a Bus Seat, and we had all the Clark Terry and Bob Brookmeyer albums, all the Big Bad Band albums. We had all those albums and knew every note and everything. And I was just kind of, I was in tears. I'm so glad that CT sounded great, you know?
Yeah.
And it was awesome. It's one of the best things I've ever heard.
Yeah, man. I think that's something that like people don't allow themselves to do that much, like at concerts. Like, but when there's just like, it's almost involuntary. Like when tears come out when you're watching somebody perform at such a high level, because it's just like you can't believe it. You can't believe what's happening like in front of your eyes, man. Like there's I had that situation happen whenever I just saw Kurt the last time up at Birdland in this January. I was going to go back and check him out because he was going to do another week at Birdland in June for the new record that he put out with Danilo. I don't know if you checked out that record, but it's he does that Wayne tune Go, and he calls it Stays. He wrote a vocalese to the Wayne tune Go. But anyways, so he did this tune that to close out the set, which is called The Return or Upward Spiral, which is off the same record that he cut with Brentford Marsalis Quartet. And he added this thing that's not in the record, but it's this other like kind of slower section that is man, have you ever checked out whenever he does live versions of My Foolish Heart and he goes into this?
And he does. Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like that. Moth, yeah.
The Moon was one of the Moth, yeah.
I had never heard, or I never really listened to Kurt's version. There's a college. Have you ever heard the group?
Yeah.
The Second Singers. I thought it's like that, and I didn't realize that they had used Kurt's version.
Yeah, and I even asked him because when I saw him in Houston in March of 2018, he was playing with Smithsonian Jazz Orchestra. And he was just like a guest, and they were doing this like road show thing. And I went up and asked him afterwards, and I was like, hey, so like where did that come from? Because like the moth thing isn't in the record. I was like, so where did that come from? And he was like, well, Lawrence and I at the time were just like trying to focus on like adding another element that, before bringing it back. And what was interesting is that he does have one version that is recorded where he does that alternate section, but it's a different motif. It's not moth. It's just something else in its place that's based on, I think, a 13th century John the Baptist like poem or set of words. But you can check it out on the 99 record Live in Chicago, where they're live at the yeah, so that's actually on that record, but he has not ever laid down the moth thing. But you can find on YouTube a video from somebody's like phone in 2007 of him doing moth. And it's unbelievable. He holds that last note for literally, I clocked it like 55 seconds. And just like in the stratosphere too, just like total. I mean, that guy's a master of his falsetto, and just unbelievable. And it just like leaves you to this point where like he's so captivating and just takes you by the reins, and like you can't help but like be completely in the palm of his hand for like the whole night. Like he's the master showman without being cheesy, it just, yeah. If you get a chance, when this all ends and he comes to Austin again, I'm buying you and me a ticket, and
that would be awesome. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, man, like I'm curious if you had like because like I said, you have no shortage of stories. You have no shortage of people, like stories I've never even heard. And like in our times of like talking, but who would you say is like hands down the most life-changing experience, whether you met and talked to them or just like saw them like play?
My favorite concert ever is the Basie Band.
Yeah.
When Count Basie was still alive.
Wow.
At Paramount Theater. I sat 10th row dead center at Paramount Theater. 1981 was my freshman year in college. And I was coming to Austin pretty regularly to see concerts. And I saw Basie Band, Buddy Rich in Waco, and Phil Woods with Tom Harrell within about a month of each other. Phil Woods with Tom Harrell, they played a club, it's called 6th Street Live, which is no longer there. That was a pretty significant jazz boom in Austin in the early 80s. When Kirk Whalum used to play there regularly, and Tomas Ramirez used to play Baxter's and Santiago's. And there were actual jazz clubs on 6th Street. Yeah. And you can hear people, I lived there a little bit because I was staying with my sister, but certainly if you talk to people like Mike Mordecai and Joe Morales and people that have been around for a long time, I used to talk to Tony Campisi and Buff Mannion because they were right in the middle of it. Well, I think I never got to meet Basie.
Yeah, well, I think you and I can both agree that like what a satisfying moment to realize that those jazz bands were replaced with brass bands and thrasher, blues bands all over 6th Street. I mean, who needs jazz anyways,
Right.
I'm just joking. But, man, I wonder if, and my timeline may be totally off, but who's that singer that I think she's from Austin, and then she got her start?
No, Carmen Bradford.
Yeah,
I was there the night Carmen auditioned for Basie that night.
Yeah, so that was that. Okay, yeah, because
that night. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Carmen. The Basie Band, they had a warm-up group, and it was a group called Passport that I guess they made up just for that night. And people don't believe me when I tell them this, but Mitch Watkins was playing bass that night.
Whoa.
Yeah, and legendary guitar player. But it was Mitch Watkins, Bill Ginn, phenomenal piano player, and mainly known for jingle writing, but phenomenal piano player from Austin. And then Buff Mannion on drums. Before I'd ever met Buff, I met him down in Corpus Christi playing at Texas Jazz Festival. And then years later found out he was from Austin. But I played with Buff all the time. But that was the night Carmen got the Basie gig, and she's still with the Basie Band to this day.
Yeah, because I went up and visited David Mescatique up at UNC, and he's back now. He came back. He just got back in town this week. But So anyways, yeah, I went up there to go visit him. Me and Ben Treach went up there, and that was actually another excuse to go see Kurt. This is now just becoming the Kurt show. I'll stop saying his name. He's Voldemort now. He who the name. But I went up there.
Greeley's incredible because there's a lot of music. You know, Greeley in Denver. There's so much stuff happening there.
I was so sad because we went up there for like a weekend and we saw Kurt in Denver at Soil Dub Underground, and then we went over and checked out that next like Monday or Tuesday. We checked out Carmen Bradford was the guest with them, and David was playing, and I mean she was just incredible, and she told that story of her being in Austin, and she like went up to him and she was like, you're gonna put me in your band. Like you should put me in your band. Like I'm going to be, and he was like, okay, all right, whatever. And then she played the set and he heard her sing. And then he was like, okay, yeah,
no
sure.
kidding.
Like, let's go on the road right now. Yeah, it's incredible, man. I was so sad because I think like 3 days later, after I had to leave Greeley to get back in town for some gigs, Ari Honig came into town, and then I think he was playing like a solo drum show, like a solo drum concert, which if anyone you want to check that out, you know, it's Ari Honig. So yeah.
There's a lot of great players in Denver. You know, I've never gotten to stay there very long, but I would want to see Ron Miles. He's a legendary trumpet player that lives and guitar player, but he's a legendary player and really out of that Woody Shaw school that I like, you know.
Yeah. Well, Sparky too, I'm sure everybody who doesn't know you outside of this episode and this podcast is probably thinking like, who is this Sparky Thomason guy, and how has he had all these opportunities, and how does he have all these stories and everything? So let's just dive in. You're probably
going to put this to where you put this part at the front. No, I'm kidding.
For sure. But like tell everybody, and like even me, because we've, you know, I remember people telling me about you whenever I was down in Lake Jackson with Brian Casey and Richard Burke and Sparky Kerner and like all those people, you know, saying your name too. But like tell everybody and tell me about, you know, how you came up, how you got into the thing, and then like what were those like catalyst moments that like set you off, or like who did you see that was like, this is it, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I grew up here in Rockdale, Texas. I live 5 houses down from the house I grew up in. So we're all the same. Moved back full circle.
Sure.
And went to college at MCC in Waco, McClellan Community College. Dave Hibbard, who just passed away here a couple of years ago, was not an amazing trumpet teacher. He was my improv teacher, trumpet teacher, jazz director. He was one of the great lead players. Played lead with Clark Terry, Big Bad Band, and Basie Band, Duke Ellington, Tonight Show, everybody. Yeah. So I learned a lot from him. I went to Sam Houston just as they were shutting down what had been a really good jazz school. And that's kind of where I got to know Brian Casey and and Sparky Corner and all the crowd from Lake Jackson, Angleton, and all them down there. Then after that, I joined the Air Force Band in San Antonio, which is where, you know, got to play with and meet Ron Wilkins and, you know, and tour with the Dimensions of Blue and just gigging in San Antonio, helped start San Antonio Jazz Orchestra. Yeah. I was a DJ for 7 years at KRTU.
Cool.
So I did that back before Aaron Prado. Aaron's a former student of mine with the Greater San Antonio Jazz Institute.
Okay.
And I always knew he was going to be a great radio DJ because the way that he emceed his student group that he had. So we knew he's going to be a DJ someday. And not only that, but he helped build KRTU into a juggernaut now. But then played in San Antonio for years and was playing more Tejano and salsa gigs than anything else, which I still do a lot of. So we decided to move to Utah, did my master's there. And of course, as soon as I got to Utah, I was in a salsa band for 7 years in Salt Lake City, of all things. But did a lot of jazz stuff as well. And along the way, just played with a bunch of people. And between the Air Force Band and San Antonio Jazz Orchestra, and now Temple Jazz Orchestra, since we came back, we were supposed to have Wycliffe Gordon for our 30th anniversary with the Temple Jazz Orchestra. And so that's one thing that went under. And originally we were going to get Doc Severinsen, but then he couldn't do it. Yeah. And so Ben Iram, who runs the Temple Jazz Festival. I said, Ben, you need to call Kurt Elling. You need to call Voldemort. And so Voldemort was that close. He was close to signing a contract. I know, because I wanted him to. And Voldemort almost signed, and then I guess his agent came to him and said, hey, you've got another gig. You've got to go to Europe the last week of March, which now didn't happen.
Yeah.
We weren't able to get him, so then we got Wycliffe. And Wycliffe Gordon was going to do it. So that would have been the 40th anniversary of the Temple Jazz Festival.
Well, you just let me know who I need to bribe or slip several $100 bills to whenever this ends so we can make that happen. But yeah, man, I mean, he's like the most working dude. I mean, he talks about how like he works like, I think he said last year he was on the road like 186 nights, you know, and kudos to the silent heroes, which are his family for, you know, allowing him to be out there that much too. But man, that's absolutely incredible. You know, speaking of Doc Severinsen too, his drummer for a while, I guess he's probably still his drummer. Stockton he was like a guest artist when I was in high school and came down and told us all these stories because he was the last drummer for Maynard too. Right, and then you know, it was really touching because we had this whole thing where, you know, we were like doing the hits, we were doing the rehearsals and everything, and then we just had a sit down where he just kind of told stories and took a few like questions at the end. And
Stockton has way more stories than he's got way better stories and is a way better storyteller than I am.
Sure. Well,
he and I did the Regent Jazz Bands together at Temple this past year.
Oh, really? Cool.
Stockton before that. He's a great hang and an incredible player as well.
Yeah. Great hair too. That guy's got great hair.
Yeah, way better than that. So Stockton, I just found out he got named a Texas artist. I found that out. Yeah, so he's along with people like Joe Ely and Jimmy Vaughn and Marshall Ball. So he's like a Texas artist, you know, goes around and is able to play it, you know, whatever that entails. It's a big honor.
Yeah, and he's a relatively young cat too, right? He's like probably
you're the same age,
yeah. It's crazy, man. But he was telling us whenever, you know, it was really emotional because he started talking about the Maynard thing when they all found out, and just like, I mean, it was like real quick, real like unexpected. If memory serves me correctly, must have been like 6-7 years ago since we heard him talk. But yeah, that was really touching. But I remember like getting his records. I think the one that I listened to most was, I think it was Crazy Aquarius, which I think is the name of his turtle, which is why turtles.
You mean Stockton? Okay, not Maynard. It's okay.
Yeah, no. Sorry, Stockton. Yeah.
I was like, I'm trying to go through the whole catalog of Maynard albums that I have as Crazy Aquarius.
No.
Crazy Aquarius?
No. We, I guess the Maynard record that I had on constantly repeat in high school too, because I mean there was like, as a trumpet player in high school, that's all I was listening to was like Miles, Clifford Brown, Lee Morgan, and then Wayne Bergeron and people like that.
You're way ahead of where I was. I didn't get into Miles till Hibbert got me into Miles when I was in college. All I knew was Maynard and a little bit of Doc.
Yeah.
And our band director took us to see him when I was a sophomore in high school.
Really, Maynard?
Yeah, took us to Killeen Ellison High School and put us on a bus, and we saw Maynard. And I bought my first Maynard T-shirt from Stan Mark.
Nice.
He was selling that was the New Vintage tour.
Yeah.
And when I found out Maynard died, I was teaching high school. That's my son Winton.
Hey.
I was teaching him.
We used to wear that Maynard shirt to festivals.
Oh yeah. Well, that was the Maynard shirt that Paul Stevens gave me. Because Paul and I were in the Air Force band together. We played together for 5 years, and of course, Maynard always told me that. He said, Paul's the best lead player I've ever had. Like on a night to night, like most consistent as it had the Air Force band thing. Because we toured, 200 nights a year. You've got to be on every night.
Yeah.
When I found out Maynard died, I was teaching a class at Milano High School, right down the road, little 1A school.
Yeah.
And my principal was also a trumpet player. So he came down between classes right after my band class was over, and I was getting ready to do an appreciation class. He said, Spark, I got some bad news. Maynard just passed away. Like, what? And I had to go in my office for like 5 minutes and just like,
yeah,
because he's, you know.
Yeah, I think the first person that, as somebody who was getting into jazz, that it like hit me whenever the person passed. And I mean, I think people will know this name, but he came down and did. He was one of our guest artists, like I think my junior year of high school, and it was Mick Gillette. Tower, right? And so he came down. I remember that guy being like the biggest ball of fun, man. Like he was just like rambunctious. He had so many great stories. He just was like this delight, just shining beam of light of a human. And I remember being in college, and I was staying over the night with Lydia, and it was like 2 a.m. We were just like talking and watching movies, and I was like scrolling through Facebook, and I saw like the headline, and it like hit me, man, because I was like, whoa, like, because I mean, you hear about, you know, before as a kid, you know, you're like, oh yeah, like so and so passed, and you can't really like process it that much. But it's like once you've like, especially once you've like met that person, even if it's in the smallest increment of time, you know, it just like hits you in a different way, and you're like, whoa, like I heard that guy like wailing like 3 years ago, you know,
and especially if you've met him, you know that, you know, and you know you met him and got to interact with him too.
Because it becomes real at that point.
How many times have you seen Tower Power?
How many times have I seen Tower Power? I think I saw him. I've only seen him once, and it was down over at Jazz Alive.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. And I only saw him
3 times at Jazz Alive.
Okay. Yeah.
They've been a bunch. Yeah. And then we had him the first year of the Salt Lake Jazz Festival. We saw him there. God, that was ridiculous because we were playing with the salsa band I was in, Mambo Jumbo. It was a free festival that Rocky Anderson, the mayor, is a big jazz band. And so it was an all free event on the courthouse lawn in Salt Lake City. He just had a jazz festival. And Take 6, I got to back Nancy Wilson.
Oh, man.
I got to play in the band that backed Nancy Wilson. Oh, and I sat by Chuck Finley because they would bring Chuck Finley down as the lead player. So I got to play second next to Chuck, which is incredible. Yeah. And I saw his mouthpiece. I had never seen a downstream mouthpiece before. For you non-trumpet players, that's a whole different thing. But yeah, so I had to get Chuck Finley told me about how he's a downstream player, and you know, because he had the curved shank mouthpiece. Yeah. Really weird. I never knew. And let's see who else was. Take 6, Tower Power. And then also with Nancy, golly, there was another guy, Bobby Rodriguez, who's a big salsa artist, trumpet player out of L.A., and just happened to be on percussion with him was Alex Acuna.
Wow.
Just playing percussion with this guy, Bobby Rodriguez, was Alex Acuna. It's like, what the hell?
Man, Take 6, when you said that, I mean, I was like this because Take 6 was the first group that got me into jazz, man. I grew up doing musical theater in Brad Sports Center stages, the community theaters down there in like Jackson, which, you know, after growing up with it, you kind of take it for granted, but there were some really amazing, really professional performances going on at that community theater, really just like class act people and also incredible actors and singers. I mean, it's just like the educators down there are amazing, but there's
a lot of talent down there. I couldn't believe how many great musicians, you know, and this is you're probably trying to lead us into Grand Ole American Radio and Blue Water Highway, but those are amazingly talented people, and when I went to MCC, just all the people I ran in, and Sam Houston, all the people I ran into from Angleton and Lake Jackson included. It's just a really musically affluent area. A lot of great musicians.
And it has to do with all those educators down there too, like Jim Cook and what was the guy? But I mean, before my time, but Bill Gottschalk,
Sparky Corner,
Richard.
Jerry Perkins just passed away.
Yeah.
He was the best director at Alvin Community College. Great trumpet player also. And he just passed away.
There's a drummer teacher down there, Louis Boldricchini, and just like all these people who are, he's over, I think, in Manville. But yeah, man, it's just like great stuff down there. And David Hill, who teaches choir at the intermediate school, right? He also was the one who was doing music director and main director for all these different shows at Brad Sports Center Stages over the years. And he, whenever I was in the 7th grade, was like, we got to go, like, everybody needs to go to this concert. I'll find a way to get like discount tickets. So we went, and he took us all to go see Take Six. And so, and you think about it, it's like, what age is that? Like 10, 11 years old? Like, I've been in there, and I said this on a previous episode, but I was like, it's almost a travesty that I saw them at age 11 because I couldn't fully appreciate it. But there was something that was so undeniable about it that I was like, I don't know what the hell that is, but I have to do that. And then the very next,
regardless of what age.
Right. And it was because the Clarion had just been built, and the Clarion's like a world-class, place. And so, the very next year comes in New York Voices. And so I was like, and just the writing of Darman Meter alone is worth the price of admission, much less like hearing them all together and hearing like a combo behind them and everything. So to hear those guys in rapid succession within, the same year, I guess technically it was 2 school years, but it must have probably been the same year. It just that's where the bug happened. Then we had Wayne Bergeron come down, and then we had, Mick Gillette, and we had Stockton Helbing, and all these amazing people. It just like come through at such a rapid rate. My biggest regret is that when we were playing that steakhouse gig on 6th Street that we held for like 3 years, what was it? I had just gotten the gig, and I wasn't cool with the management yet. And I'd only been on the gig.
You couldn't sub out yet.
Yeah, I'd only been like 4 or 5 weeks on the gig. And I already had to sub out a couple for like some school performances because I started this gig my sophomore year of college, and I was down in San Marcos. So I was like making this commute like back and forth, just trying to make the scene. And I get this call from Richard Burke. You know Richard, right? Yeah. And Richard calls me, and he's like, "Hey man, I need a 4th trumpet player. You're still playing your horn, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm playing in school and playing on the stand whenever I have my big band going." And he's like, "Hey, do you want to come play 4th for D.D. Bridgewater?" And I was like, hell yes. I was like, when and where? And he's like, yeah, it pays this much. I was like, no. Like, you don't even have to pay me. Like, maybe cover my gas, but even then, like, I'll buy you. And he was like, yeah, it's going to be Friday, May, whatever. And I was like, and so,
He's ridiculous.
So I passed, man. I passed.
Did you do the you couldn't do it. Okay. I was going to ask if you did the Thad version of Bye Bye Blackbird with her.
No, man. I passed. And I know the chart. Yeah, you're talking about. And
where he starts ass step up. Da, 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 C.
I think it's my biggest professional regret.
I had an opportunity to see Miles.
Ooh.
Oh, it gets more painful. So I was in the Air Force Band. Yeah, this story only gets more painful. I was in the Air Force Band, and Miles was playing the JVC Jazz Festival in Houston. And it was going to be Miles. It was Miles, George Benson, McCoy Tyner, Winton, I can't even remember, but a ton of all-stars. But I was just like, because I had never seen Miles. And this was in 93, maybe 92, right before I got out. And we had tickets. We were ready to go. And still in the Air Force Band. And our commander, they weren't supposed to take gigs like real last minute. The calendar was supposed to be pretty set in stone, unless a 3-star general called and said, hey, I need y'all to play here. Then we had to drop everything we did. Well, but it wasn't a 3-star general. It was our commander decided to take this gig. And I'll never forget, it was at a bank parking lot outdoors in Devine, Texas. And it wasn't really, it was like a community relations. It was just like it sounds. It was like for some podunk festival in Devine, Texas. And I missed Miles. Not only did we miss the Miles gig at the JVC Jazz Festival, but then after, there used to be a club called Blue Moon that Mike Wheeler ran in Houston. And, that's where my wife and I's first date. I took her to see Ray Brown, and that was Ray Brown, Jeff Hamilton, Gene Harris. 3 weeks later, we saw Courtney Pine. Well, we were going to see, so Tommy Flanagan's trio with George Mraz and Bernard Harper was playing the Blue Moon, and all those people came down after for a big jam session that went till about 3 a.m. It galls me even thinking about it. That was my opportunity to see Miles.
Oh man, I think I need something stronger than this coffee, man. That's hard, man. I'm so sorry.
That was my Miles gig. My phone is ringing, so let me throw it. Let me hang it up. My phone was right. I still have a landline.
Hey man, you do what you got to do.
Yeah, because we have kids in different parts of the country, so that way they can call us at 3 a.m. and we'll actually. If somebody's calling the landline at 3 a.m, it's not a telemarketer. It's one of our kids.
Yeah.
So anyway,
You got to answer that call.
I'm trying to hang it up, but it didn't work.
Yeah, no problem, man. Do what you do.
All right.
But yeah, I was gonna say something about that before we talk. Oh yeah, I remember I was playing a gig night that Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. What was it, last year came to Paramount, and I was like, and it was the steakhouse gig. I shouldn't complain. It was a great gig for 3 straight, and it was the most formative time for me to get my chops going.
Sure.
And, whenever I listen back to my previous records and the one I'm about to put out, I'm like, I think if anything pushed me along, it was, being on the band every single Friday. And then everything in between, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
But the flip side of that is when you're a musician, when people come through town, they're just
Friday or Saturday, and it's either a steakhouse gig on a Friday or it's a private event on a Saturday. But I remember being so tired after that, and I mean, we were on 6th, right? It's on 6th and Congress, is a steakhouse, and then Paramount's just 1 block north, right? It's just right there. And so they were like, everybody go down to Parker afterwards because there's a possibility that Winton and everybody go show up. And I remember particularly after that night, I maybe wasn't playing so hot. I was having an off day and I was just really tired. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go and crash. And so I'm laying in bed. It's 11 o'clock. The steakhouse gig ends at 9. It's 11. And then my phone starts blowing up. Everybody's sending me these pictures of Winton on the stage. And I was like,
all right,
man. And then I was like, should I get down there? And they were like, no, man, he's already off. But then at the time, Matt Maldonado sends me this video and he goes, dude, this vocalist is killing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Ridiculous. And I didn't know who she was at the time. And I absolutely know who she is now. But Veronica can do no wrong. I mean, it's effortless, man. He showed me a clip that he took, video of her doing a bone solo, emulating a trombone, which is the gimmick of all gimmicks for singers. Right. But if you can do it well and you can do it right and garner the respect of players like Matt, Matt's one of the top sax players in town. Yeah. And he's and I mean, he's not a vocalist hater by any means, but he's he can sniff out the bullshit when there is some. And he was just dude, she could scat us under a table, man, and showed that. And her phrasing and everything, just unbelievable. So then whenever I went in January this past year, I caught her. I went downstairs to Birdland Theater and I caught her with the Emmett Cohen trio, which I don't know if you know Emmett Cohen. Dude. Otherworldly, that dude. And it was what was it, Russell Hall and Kyle Poole on bass and or wait, no, I'm sorry, I think it was Kyle Poole on drums, and then I can't remember what the bassist name was, but anyways, it was super killing. And then I caught the end of her set, or caught the whole set. And then as soon as she ended her set, I think it was 7:59 and applause is going. I felt bad rushing out, but I ran upstairs to grab my table for Kurt, who was playing 8 o'clock. So I had 1 minute to get up there and check out the show. But dude, she live, there's not a note out of place, man. She's unbelievable. She's going to put us all out of business immediately.
Well, the amazing scat singers, the one common denominator you find, they really know harmony. They get around. It's like Kurt. So, Kurt will play piano for himself a lot, and there's some older videos of him playing piano for himself, and his voicings they sound like a good jazz piano player. So you can tell, like Sarah Vaughan, back in the day, with Billy Eckstine, she would play piano when Billy Eckstine was singing, and her voicings, she knows harmony. So when you hear them sing, they sound like how a good horn player, I hate to make that, but they sound like how a good horn player would have to know harmony.
Yeah, vocalists are trying to be like
singers that don't do that. Not you know your stuff, but there's so many singers that kind of jive, that don't know harmony, and you can tell they don't. They'll get by on the syllables and kind of shucking and jiving.
Yeah.
Where, Betty Carter and Sarah Vaughan and, Veronica Swift, Kurt, Faye Clawson.
Mm-hmm.
Faye Clawson's an incredible scat singer. She's ridiculous. I would love to get her down for the festival. If we could fly her from Denmark, that would be incredible. She's ridiculous.
Yeah, man. And I think it's like a big part of, like, I've got a Wurlitzer upright, like right there that, I shed probably like 3 hours a day just because of the fact that if you don't know what's going on, I think that like started with me just being a horn player and singing. Right. For the longest time, it was mostly horn playing. And then I was like, well, I could either try to be a jazz trumpet player. I could try to be a jazz singer. Which one's more saturated? I feel like there's a lot more trumpet players out there. And also with singing, I was like, maybe I have like a little more on this. So I decided to go down that road. But I think there's like a huge advantage, and it's almost a prerequisite that you need to be able to play another instrument. I'm not necessarily. Like there are people who don't play another instrument, like Dee Dee Bridgewater, who, doesn't. She even admitted at Jazz Congress in January that she doesn't even read music.
Wow.
Yeah, she was like, I can't read music. People have tried it. She's like, I can kind of follow along, but like if you try to put a chart in front of me, it's like, no, just let me listen to it once, and then I've got it, And again, for other people, if other singers were telling me that, I'd call bullshit, and I'd be like, no, you need to do your homework. But it's Dee Dee Bridgewater, and I'm not going to say anything to her. She's a NEA jazz master. Right. So, but yeah, they even went down the line. They had a vocalist panel, and it was Sheila Jordan, and then it was Dee Dee Bridgewater, and it was Kurt Elling. And so, and Sheila Jordan said that she was very upfront. She was very blunt about a lot of stuff, but she was like, I tried to take piano lessons, but she had like abusive like parents or grandparents or something like that. They would hit her hands with a ruler all the time. They were all like bruised black and blue. So because of that, she stopped taking piano, and but she just like focused on just her voice. And Dee Dee Bridgewater said, I don't play anything. I don't read music. And Kurt was saying, he's like, I play enough piano to get by into and inform myself. And I feel like most people, if they can, they should do that. And, you can always tell who one of the real vocalists is if, it's not a catch-all, but if they're using vocabulary terms like guide tones, you're like, okay, they're in the right headspace because they know what they're supposed to be listening for. Like I would send Matt when I was trying to, Matt Maldonado has been a big, mentor for me kind of, cause he was the first, he was the first person to welcome me into the scene once I first came on. And I would send him throughout the years, a couple of years ago, stuff where I was like, okay, I feel like my syllables are good here. I feel like I'm doing this here. And I was like, what do you think? And he was like, yeah, man, it all sounds great, but you're missing the guide tones. You're missing the thirds and the sevens. He's like, so you need to start doing stuff that's more, he's like, you need to stop doing stuff that's just gestural that works over any change. And you need to start like scatting the changes, which then prompted me to go to a piano and just start playing, I would take a lead sheet and I would just play, instead of roots, I would just play thirds and sevens throughout the entire thing, which makes it sound like a totally different tune.
Well, and trying to get you to be more harmonically accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you're doing, yeah.
Yeah, and then, me and Dufour on the first episode, we're talking about how 100 or not 100%, like 60, 70% of your shedding and your practicing is listening. and just like absorbing from other stuff, because it's not so much like classical where you can just be like, yeah, this is exactly how the line is, do it exactly how it's written. It's not about what's written on the page. It's about like what your ear is doing. And like people say, like the book is your Bible. The real book is your Bible whenever you're learning tunes. Like maybe it's just a framework, but then after that, I mean, you listen to the what's that, Above and Beyond Freddie Hubbard record, and he does Softly. And he literally plays like the first A within the first 4 seconds, and that's it, and then he like continues going on, but it's not reading a chart.
No, and like Miles, the Miles album 4 and More, where he does the My Funny Valentine.
Yeah.
Where you get ba-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and that's all the melody you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Because the audience he's playing for, once they hear C minor, major 7, once they hear those 4 chords, they know it's My Funny Valentine. He doesn't need to. I'm not, and I'm the same way. I'm not obligated. I don't feel like I'm obligated to play the whole melody for you.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about this in a previous episode too, and this is kind of a controversial statement, but like the Great American Songbook as is kind of played out a little bit too, so you got to make sure to add some sort of new element, or don't just present these songs in the same way. Like something that Clark had told me, Clark Summers, Kurt's bass player, that totally changed the way he sent me this like 8-page email. Like I was young and naive, and I was like, hey, like, can I send you my second album? And I say young and naive, this was like 3-4 years ago, or no. But I was like, hey, can I send you? And just like,
well, we've all aged a lot through this pandemic, so.
Sure, right. The beard shows that time has passed, or the sorry excuse for a beard. But
the hair sticking out from under the hat. So.
Right. Then when you did that, it reminded me of whenever, what's the guitar player who's real crazy? Mike Stern. Mike Stern. He came up to us. We were playing.
I have a Mike Stern story. Go ahead.
Okay. They were playing hunting wabbits, and he was like, no, guys, not like that. He goes, we're hunting wabbits, and like pulled his hair to the side, just did like the voice and everything. Like he's a hoot, man. He's a fun guy. Tell the Mike Stern story.
You probably heard years ago when Michael Brecker came to Austin. You probably heard about that gig.
Nope.
The Brecker Quartet, right after the second album, quintet. It was Brecker, Mike Stern, Joey Calderazzo, Adam Nussbaum, and Jay Anderson. Sam Irwin, my old band leader with Duck Soup, owned this place, Anchovies, on 6th Street. He brought Michael Brecker to Austin. And so that quintet. And so they played the first set, and Brecker couldn't get his EWI working because he had a lot of tunes to use EWI. He couldn't get his EWI working. So now this really sucked. So that meant he had to play a lot more tenor than he normally would.
Okay.
It really sucked, right? So I'm joking. So on the break, I'm sitting outside just hanging out, and Mike Stern comes out, and he sees me, and he asks me, he goes, so are you from here? Are you from Austin? I go, yeah. So what's up? I said, well, is there anywhere else? Is there anywhere I can get a slice real quick? I said, oh yeah, Cozzoli's right down the street. I'll walk you down there. So we went down and got, big old slice of pizza, and we're sitting on the curb. Mike sits on the curb in front of Anchovies. I'm like, I'll sit down with him. So we're sitting on the curb and talking, and hey, you're an amazing player, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking, and Brecker comes out, and he sees me and Mike Stern sitting on the curb eating pizza. It's like, where'd y'all get that pizza? I said, Cozzoli's right down the street. And I pointed him down there, and he went and came back. And so he sat down on the other side of me. Oh. So I'm sitting in between Michael Brecker and Mike Stern, eating pizza. All kinds of stuff like that through the years. I just some kind of things I kind of injected myself into because I want to, you want to meet people like this.
Of course.
And 99% of the time they're incredibly nice, Yeah. But, in pretty much every instance, they're really, really nice, and you find out things. And at the end of the night, Brecker's done. He hadn't been able to play his Iwi. The crowd leaves, and after all the applause and everything, the crowd leaves. I'm sitting next to Rick Lawn and Greg Wilson, who I didn't know at the time, and Jeff Helmer. I knew Rick, and we're at tables next to each other, and everybody else is leaving. Shane Pitch, who was a former student. Shane Pitch was still my student. He was sitting with me, and Jack Helsley, and so we're sitting there, and Brecker goes back to the stage after everybody leaves and tries to get his Iwi working. He hits like 3 or 4 buttons, and it's like a spaceship lights up, and his Iwi starts working. He's like, "Hey, do y'all want to hear a couple of tunes with the Iwi?" There's like 10 of us in the club. Yeah, go ahead. So the group gets up there, and they play up like a whole nother half a set. They play like 5 tunes for the 10 of us.
Man.
It was incredible.
That's amazing, man. That's so amazing. I think that there's definitely something to that too, about like the hang of those musicians, because like they go to all these different cities, and like we've all had like gigs where we don't like necessarily want to be like super social, whether it's like just a bad day or travel or whatever's been going on. But at the same time, like if you're these guys who are not necessarily like fawning all over them, but you're just like, "Hey man, great," or like, "I have a great admiration for you as a player," and then also just like, yeah, like help them out with something, point them towards like a restaurant, and then just like make the hang, and you're just like relaxed and you're just chill about everything. Usually, I mean, they're going to be pretty cool as well. Like there was a situation kind of similar to your Tony Bennett story where we were up, man, I wonder if it was the Temple Jazz Festival. No, sorry. We were up in Allen, Texas, and we were doing.
Where'd you go to high school?
Brazoswood.
You went to Brazoswood. Yeah, of course. I judged your band. Yeah.
So we went up to the Allen Jazz Festival that first year. We were invited up there for that first year. Were you there at that festival?
No.
Okay. So we were over there in this real nice, I mean, I think it was called like the Cadillac Center or something like that. Allen, very affluent area.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're checking into our hotel, and over one shoulder I look, I'm like, holy shit, that's Frank Green. And then who was the other person that came by? I think
I have a Frank Green story.
Okay, man, you no shortage. And then what was the sax player? Was it Dennis DeBlasio?
Yeah, Dennis is great. Yeah.
And then he passes by, and then
Was he judging?
yeah, he was one of the judges. And then for me at the time, I was the lead player in the lower band the year before, and then I was like secondary lead to Nathaniel McKay. Nathaniel McKay is my old friend, my best friend in the world.
Oh, and I didn't know right there. Yeah.
So then, because Natty was playing lead, and he was like the screamer and marching band and everything. But then we had
dang, y'all had a killer trumpets. Was Brian's son in there too?
Not with us.
Was he later?
I don't think so. I don't know that.
He has a son that's a killing trumpet player.
Okay. Brian's son. Sorry, I thought you were saying the guy's last name was Son. No.
Sorry, no, Brian Casey's son's a killer.
Yeah, Clay, yeah. And it was.
It's a bass trombone player too that's in.
Yeah, it's in the Ambassadors.
He's in the Ambassadors, yeah.
Yeah, Sean, man, and he was in the 1 o'clock, and he's on the 2011 and 2012 1 o'clock records. Man, like if you listen to that last track on the 2012 one, it's like a kind of a Indiana Jones type theme cover. Okay. But it's like a dark blue, real noir type thing. But there's this song called "Race to the Finish," and it starts out like blah 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 blah, and you just hear like Sean just, I mean, like it sounds like
bearing the rest of the band.
Yeah, it sounds like his sound alone could make like a building just like implode under itself. I mean, just like the level of fat with a capital PH.
If you're a lead trumpet player, that's your best friend.
Huh?
If you're a lead trumpet player, that's your best friend.
Yeah, because it's
the bass trombone player that can rattle the walls. Yeah,
absolutely.
I used to call him rattling your cage.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ribs would rattle a little bit.
Yeah.
Or a bass sax player can make your cage rattle a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
That's only 3 months ago since we gigged, so.
Sure, right. But yes,
Oh, that we used to gig and play with bands, and God, that was so good.
yeah, man. But so then Natty and I were over there, and so Frank Green comes by, Dennis DeBlagio comes by, Stockton Helvin comes by, and then for us at the time, God himself, Wayne Bergeron, walks through the door.
Oh yeah.
It was just, it's every high schooler's like, oh my God, Wayne Bergeron. And he walks through the door, and we're just like, and they're checking in at the desk, and we're like behind them. We're just like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And we just like play it cool. We don't say anything. And then we go over to catch the elevator, and all those other guys go over, and Wayne's with his wife, and Frank's there, and Dennis and Stockton. And so Dennis and Stockton take the first elevator, and we're all standing there, and Wayne, just being like the nicest guy ever, is just like, he sees me and Natty, we've got our gig bags on, and he's like, you guys trumpet players? And we're like, yeah, like, and you're like,
yeah, okay.
He's like, hey, I'm Wayne. And we're like, we know.
Hey, that's okay. I'm still like that with Wayne, so.
Yeah. And
5 or 6 times, so yes.
Yeah. And so he goes, you guys gonna, he's like, you guys gonna shed a little bit tonight? And we were like, yeah, probably, we're gonna get up there and shed. And he was like, all right, man, just make sure you're not next door to me. Otherwise my wife's gonna come bang your door down. And we all like laughed or whatever. And he's just cracking jokes. He's a funny dude.
Yeah.
And we're standing there for, and then he's like, all right, let's get in the elevator together. And we're like, okay, cool. Like, we were just going to let you have the elevator. But he's like, so we all get in the elevator. And after we took a picture, and we're going up, and it's like kind of silent for a second. And Wayne is standing next to Frank. And he goes, Frank. And we all kind of like not fully turn around, but just like look a little bit. And he's like, you just touched my ass? And we all just like die laughing, man, because he's just a goofball.
Yeah.
And
Frank's a pretty big goofball also. Yeah, they're both.
Yeah.
And 2 of the best lead players in the world.
Oh yeah. And then they went back and forth playing MacArthur Park between
them. Yeah. And of course Frank's now the lead player at the Basie, man. He's ridiculous. So the first time, no, it was the first time. So the first time we went to Europe with TJO, Randy Brecker had been our guest artist at cool. TJO. Yeah, at Temple Jazz Festival. And Randy was going to be in Europe, but he couldn't say, hey, we couldn't let it. He was going to play a couple of tunes, but we couldn't tell anybody.
Sure.
Because he had his own gig going there. But we invited him. He played Skunk Funk and he played Sponge with us. Uh-huh. And so at the end of the gig, before that gig, the Vanguard Jazz Orchestra was playing at the next stage over.
Okay.
So we all went over to see them, and that's Nick Marchant, Frank Green, Scott Windholt, Terrell Stafford. That's that section. So at the end of our gig, our stage was pretty high, and I can see below the piano where Ben Iron was. Is that section standing down? We had a big outdoor crowd, but the trumpet section from the Vanguard standing there watching us. It's like, dang! So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So then later that night, of course, now the North Sea Jazz Festival is the biggest jazz festival in the world. It's 14 stages, and unlike New Orleans, it's all jazz. So I saw Paquito and Raul Madone and Roberta Gambarini and Randy Brecker with CTI All-Stars, which was an amazing band. Which was an amazing band of Randy Brecker, Bill Evans, Hubert Laws, Jeff Watts, Russell Malone, Niels Landoki, and Airto. Yeah. And Airto did 15 minutes of just Airto being Airto on percussion and having the whole audience chant. Spanish Harlem Orchestra. And B.B. King. So I'm running from B.B. King to Paquito, and I'm dead sprint. And I hear, and there's all these people in the hallway, and I hear, Sparky! And I didn't recognize the voice. And I turn around, and it's Frank Green. With Terrell, Nick, and Scott.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, me? Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, come here. So I come over. We really liked your chart and your solo. It's a tune I wrote called Ludus Blues. And they said, we really liked your chart. And that was only solo. That was the only tune I soloed on that whole gig. So they had to be there. I didn't realize they were there for the whole gig. And that was our opener. So they had seen our whole set.
Yeah.
And we really liked your chart and your solo on the opener. We want you to take a picture with us. All right. And so that picture is on, and this is going to sound so old, it's on my MySpace. The only reason I have a MySpace is because that picture and all my pictures from Europe are on there. I don't even know how to get to it because it's MySpace.
Yeah,
but
right.
But I saved those pictures because I have my picture with that trumpet section. And it's on a really bad flip phone.
Sure. Hey,
yeah.
It holds true though, man. One of the people you were saying that you were checking out was Russell Malone. I got this story where the first time I went to New York in 2016, I'd gone for I went in March. It was like on spring break or whatever. So I go with my family. I make sure to check out the clubs and see who's playing. And it was kind of I won't say it was a drag if my family was listening to this, but we were there, and all I wanted to do was go to the jazz places and catch a huge Broadway hits, right? But then everybody else wanted to kind of do all the sightseeing stuff, and I was fine with it too. I mean, obviously, when you go to New York, if you go to New York, you have to go see the Metropolitan Opera, and I was an opera studies major in college too, so it was kind of a prerequisite that I had to.
Yeah, my family hates going on vacations with me because I'm that guy. Because they're wanting to see sights. And I'm all about reconning the next jazz gig. Yeah. I'm trying to recon the session in my head.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, those pyramids look great, but where's the session happening tonight?
Yeah.
Where's the gig going to be tonight? I'm that guy too.
So I reserved a night, and I was like, we're going to Blue Note. I have to go to Blue Note, no matter what. And I was the only club that I got to go to on the first trip there. And then subsequently, the next two trips that I've made back in March of 2018 or 2019, and then January this year, I've gone by myself, which sounds like it's a sad thing, but I have friends up there that I stay with, so I'm with them. But I just like to be that loner who's yeah, I'm just gonna go. Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to Smoke, and then I'm going to go, all these different places. So anyways, I'm like, all right, we're going to go to Blue Note this night because Roy Hargrove's playing. And I was like, I have to go hear Roy Hargrove. Ear Food had been in my radio on
I have a Roy Hargrove story
for years. Oh. And I can't wait, by the way. But then, so we're all excited about it. And I remember doing this gig. I was doing a gig for right before South by, and we were at this pop-up shop for a pop-up suit shop on the corner of 2nd and Lavaca or something like that. It was right down the street from Three Forks, and it was just in this pop-up space. So we're doing this thing, and then me and Ben Treesh and I think it was David Mescatique at the time, we walked over to Crew or something, and we got some quick bite to eat in between sets. And I was like, yeah, guys, look who I'm going to see. And I go and I pull up Blue Note because I don't want to say it. I just want to show them. I pull up Blue Note's website, and then it said TBA. And this is the next week after I've already bought tickets for Roy Hargrove. I was like, what the shit? No, man. I was like, no. And he had a whole week, and he canceled the whole week. And I mean, I wasn't pissed, but I was devastated. I was so sad. Oh, yeah. And I was like, whatever, it's Blue Note. I have to go anyways, and I have to see whoever's going to be there. And so I don't know who's playing until I think I show up. I walk up, and then on the marquee, it's playing tonight, Ron Carter and Russell Malone. I was like, it's fine. Everything's cool. Everything is totally cool.
So when I was in San Antonio, Art Farmer, we had the Carver Jazz Festival, and they would bring in great people. And one year they had Art Farmer in his group, which was Marvin Smitty Smith, Ray Drummond, and I'm trying to think. It must have been Cyrus Chestnut, and then Jimmy Heath was there also, and then Billy Cobham was there the night before. It was a 3-day festival. So Art gave his clinic, and then the next day, and that's where I met Shane Pitch because he was a student. Okay. I'd never met him before, and so he started taking lessons with me. This was way back. This was like 87, probably 87. And I got there early on the Sunday afternoon for the Art Farmer gig, and it was this singer that nobody knew who it was, but she was incredible. And she's doing God Bless the Child, like one, that, got, two, that, got, like the most painfully slow but grooving version of God Bless the Child you've ever heard. And that was my introduction to Diane Reeves.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of people who think they're the best singer on the planet, but she really is. I'm sorry. Diane Reeves is ridiculous. And I've seen her probably 10 or 12 times. And she's ridiculous. And I only saw one tune. I wish I had gotten there early and seen more, but God, Diane Reeves was ridiculous. Roy Hargrove. So, Grove's from Dallas, and he went to Dallas Arts Magnet. I used to judge his all-state tapes. When they would send the trumpet tapes to one city. They would send so they would always send the trumpet tapes to San Antonio.
Yeah.
And so, and that was when I was teaching Pat Murray and Curtis Calderon. And so I would regularly get 2 or 3 people where my students would be in the all-state group every year. But one year, it's Shane Pitch, but I knew who Roy Hargrove was. And so we did the swing etude comes around. It's obviously Grove because, he just sounds like Lee Morgan out of the dead.
Yeah.
Even playing an etude, you could tell it was him. I said, letter R, that's Grove. So what? I said, yeah, it's Roy Hargrove. So who's that? I said, oh, you're going to hear about him. Wait till his improv comes around. And but our Air Force band would go in clinic at Dallas Arts Magnet every year. We do our Dallas tour. Yeah. And so the big band played, and then a few of us stayed around for their combo class. And so Bart Morantz and Roy Hargrove's in there, and they do Blue Bossa, and they're getting ready to do Blue Bossa. And Spark, why don't you go out and play? I said, well, I really don't want to go play because I'm going to end up following Roy Hargrove, and he's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't want. No, Spark, go and play. I said, okay, well, I'll go out and play, but I'm not following him.
Yeah.
And sure enough, Bart counts the tune off. Roy plays. It's just like 10 courses. Like, it's like, incredible. And then Bart points at me, and I'm like, so, I did what I do. It's okay. And so we do the thing. And after the class is over, Bart and I go back to his office, and we're talking. And I'm picking his brain about teaching at this incredible place because I'm wanting to go into teaching and stuff. And we're talking. And and this was like right on cue. Bart goes, they are 50, they're incredibly talented people, but you still got to remember every now and then they're still 14 to 18-year-old kids. Yeah. And they're going to do 14 to 18-year-old kid goofball things. And right on cue, here comes Roy Hargrove walking around the corner, and it's a glass door so you can see. Yeah. And he's outside, and he knocks on the door. Yeah, come on in. Mr. Morantz, I lost my math book. Did you find my math book? I said, yeah, Roy, it's right over there where you left it. Like right on cue, the most talented high school player ever in the history of Texas walks up and has forgotten his math book.
Well, I'm pretty sure that, rest in peace, Roy Hargrove, but I'm pretty sure he never had to pick up a math book again because he could just pay those bills probably at that age,
I saw him the night Winton was coming through at Caravan of Dreams in Fort Worth. It was a great jazz club. And I was there the night, Roy now is a senior in high school. And so I was there the night that Winton had Roy go up and sit in with him. And they played some Charlie Parker tune. And that was kind of Grove's coming out party. And there were all these. And it was something that Winton had set up. There were all these record executives out there now frothing at the mouth, wanting to sign, Verve and all these other companies want to sign Roy Hargrove. So backstage, Roy sounded incredible. And so, there's like 150 of us backstage just kind of hanging out. And they're all like, hey, Winton, you sound great. Grove, you sound great. Well, I want to hear, Winton sitting on the couch and Grove sitting right by him. And I want to hear Grove. If Grove will ask Winton, what do I need to work on? And then what Winton says I need to work on. Yeah. And so, a bunch of people clear out and, we're backstage. And Grove goes, well, Skane, what I need, Skane's his nickname. He goes, Skane, what I need to work on? And so, hey, you really need to work on flexibilities. And so he showed him a lip slur. My horn, I feel bad because my horn's back in the other room, but I'd show you the lip slur. Huh. I mean, I could run and get it real quick, but.
Do it, man. Do it. Yeah.
I have to teach lessons here at 2 anyway, so I had to go get it.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
It's an offshoot of something in the Sloshberg. Ooh, first notes of the day. And then you just keep going up the partials. And so, Roy was having trouble with it. And when you get to the high one, which is the one that's actually written about high G to high C. Oh, wow, that's well, there's a note in the middle.
Yeah.
The B flat that's, And so Winton, after an hour and a half of playing, an hour and 15 minutes of playing, because Grove's playing like, it's all over the place, Yeah. And so Winton grabs this horn and he's just like, now I won't be able to do it like Winton did.
Yeah.
But Winton grabs it, it's like, it wasn't bad. But I mean, no ripple in the middle, just bam. Like,
yeah.
And of course, on the 17-pound monette with the big mouthpiece and the whole thing.
Yeah,
too.
Right.
That horn weighs, I don't even know how, Winton let me play it when I brought him to San Antonio the second time. It's like, I don't even know how, I told him, I played on for 5 minutes, and I don't even know how you hold this horn up for 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
It's so freaking heavy.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man.
I play the most lightweight. I've gone back now. I'm playing, and this is more trumpet nerd talk, but I'm playing a 1948 Besson Brevet. I've gone real lightweight, small bore. Because you get older, you don't work as hard.
Sure. Well, I mean, Sparky, I don't think anybody could say a thing about your playing, man. Like that. I don't think it was the last gig we did together, but one of those last gigs we did together, where it was we did that 4-horn thing over in Via Antonia, over in Jonestown, on the country.
Oh, that's incredible.
Dude, it was a great view, man. You came in there and you just read those charts down like it was. I mean, it was just like, and it was there.
It was fun. Those are great tunes you did, and well written. The charts are well written.
We got to do that Kurt Nature Boy thing because we got
an
arrangement thing of that. And that was real fun. Man, I can't wait to play with you again. A couple of things I wanted to get to before, and by the way, we got to have you back on because this has been so fun, man. I love talking to you so much.
Anytime I'm here in Rockdale, I'm either practicing or writing music or mowing or watering the yard. It's about
for sure, man.
Fire pit. That's about all we do. And watch NCIS New Orleans reruns. That's about it.
That sounds great, man. Well, a couple of things I wanted to get to just because I know that you got to go. So we wanted to plug that thing that you guys are doing, like the grand old Americana show, right?
Right. And a lot of the guys. I thought about it. It's like, hey, Will Hearn and Smith and Zach Thibodeau and Claire and all them. It's a great like an old style variety show. Yeah. There's some Dalton Flake. I don't know if you know Dalton.
Yeah,
they're super funny. Yeah, they're super funny and great old tunes. It's a summer show based around summer themes, and there's some gospel in there as well. Yeah. And I've written some of the arrangements, so it's really cool. 5 horns. Nick Brown is one of the horn players.
Cool.
Colin Houlihan, I don't know if you know him.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 trumpets. George, I can't remember his last name now. George Solis out of Houston.
Okay.
With it, and then Tyler Smolovic is the trombone player.
Cool.
And so we're going to be doing 2 virtual. We've already taped them. They're not live. We taped them up a few weeks ago up in that really nice theater in Wichita Falls. And Act 1 is going to be tomorrow at 7:30 virtual, either through the website. You can get through the Grand Ole American Radio Show website or the Grand Ole Americana Facebook page,
Cool.
or the Instagram page as well. The Go Show Pro Facebook page as well.
Great.
And there's tickets. It's $15, but it's to defray. It costs a lot to put these shows on. When we tour, which we're not touring right now. But the first act is tomorrow, and then the second act is next Friday, July 10th. And they're $15 a piece. But because we're going to be doing a Christmas show, hopefully when this is all over, we're going to be doing the Christmas show again and touring all around, hopefully, in December.
Those are great productions, man, and all of those are some really dear friends of mine. We grew up all doing Brad Sports Center stages. I mean, that Christmas show, I remember going to the very first one. It was just like they were like just out of high school or still in high school. They just put on this.
They've been doing 9 or 10 years, I think, with the Christmas show. And it's grown like crazy,
and it was just this small little thing where it's just like one night, and then it like grew over time. And then Will was just like, man, let's just like make this a big thing and then tour it. And it's cool to see that from being a 10-year-old in the audience and watching the first one and then watching it to see what it's done now is really, really incredible.
We do 4 nights. We do 4 nights just at the Clarion in Lake Jackson.
Yeah, well, it's the hometown crowd, man. The hometown crowd loves.
And then we do Wichita Falls. We do a bunch in the Metroplex. And we do New Braunfels and San Marcos. Brontex, Braunfels, we do multiple days. So it's really growing. It's a juggernaut. It's going to hopefully keep growing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, the way that we are ending every show, and I'll make sure to put links to that in the bio and everything. But the way that
we can plug one more thing.
Go ahead.
I can plug one more thing. I'm going to start doing my Lone Star. It's been so long I forgot. It's been so long I've done it, I forgot. Lone Star Jazz. We've done about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I wanted to wait till the clubs started getting up and somewhat going again. But I think there's things going on that I think I'm going to do the next one next Friday. I'm going to do the first one, the relaunch next Friday.
Very cool, man.
Friday. I'm going to do the relaunch on Friday.
Yeah, man, that's great. I think that was something that kind of inspired this too, was just like you took such great initiative of being like, you know what, we need to encourage everybody of like where they're playing, everything that's going on around the state of Texas. And I mean, you have been super instrumental in keeping our thing going all throughout Texas and garnering a large amount of support from like all over, like people that are not even in Texas are like tuning in and they're just like seeing what's going on, man. So kudos to you for being
maybe making a trip down here and reconning, they can do their own recon when they get down here.
Absolutely. Lone Star Jazz, man. People need to check it out. I'll put a link to that as well. So that way people can check that out. Man, the way that we're ending every show, cause I know you got to go here in about 8 minutes, but we,
Don at 300 beats a minute. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. The way we're ending every show is as gigging musicians, we have no shortage of batshit crazy, insane stories of like nightmares on the gig, whether it's like a bridezilla or it's like something going wrong on the gig or like forgetting the horn or stuff like that. So just like whatever comes to mind, no pressure. What's like the one that you can think of craziest situation that's happened on a gig that's just been nightmare fuel?
Well, I got shot at a gig in Cameron, Texas.
You may have just won this entire podcast, man. Whoa, what's going on there?
So I was in a band. I was at MCC in Waco. I was in a band called Upstage. We were the all-white horn section in the all-black funk band.
Okay.
And we were playing at a place that's no longer there. It's 15 miles north of here, Cameron. A place called the Lion Shack on Highway 77.
Okay.
And it's on the break. I'm sitting at the bar with the guy I used to play football against in Cameron's. And I won't mention his name. Well, I have to mention his name because it'll come up in the story.
Okay.
And the bar has mirrors in the back.
Yeah.
And we're talking, and all of a sudden, I see this chick come up, and she's got a purse.
Mm-hmm.
And my spidey senses went off a little bit because something happened. And all of a sudden, I saw her in the rearview mirror say, "Freddie Capers!" The guy's name is Freddie Capers.
Uh-huh.
"Freddie Capers, you done slept around on me for the last time." And I saw her in the mirror pull the gun out. And my best friend, Steve Johnson, well, we were later in the Air Force Band together, swears, I don't remember doing this, but he swears I drug him over the bar. And there were 3 shots. And they all went all over the place. They didn't hit anybody. And pretty much before the 3rd shot came out of her gun, the rollers came up and Cameron Police was there, or Milam County Sheriff was there, and they already had her in cuffs and were hauling her off.
Oh my God. That is the craziest story I think I've ever heard, man.
Pretty crazy.
Oh man.
That's the only time I've ever been shot at. So
well, for all of us, we're glad you did.
When you start saying batshit crazy stories, immediately Lime Shack in Cameron, Texas, Freddie Capers getting shot at. Flashed right. I wanted to go with whatever the first one. Because I've had others, but that was the only time I've ever been shot at. So.
Well, hopefully it's the last time. The first and last time you've been shot at, man. Well, man, Sparky Thomason, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite musicians to play with. We have to get together after this. We got to make sure we got a campaign for Kurt to be the guest artist at that thing. And then regardless if it's then or whenever, we got to catch a show together.
He's on our dream list for sure.
Man, well, I want to make sure to be aware of your time. You got 4 whole minutes for a student. Sparky, thank you so much for being here. This is amazing.
Christian, thanks for having me. And anytime, I'd love to do it. Anytime.
Awesome. All right, Sparky, I'll see you.
As always, on the bandstand as well.
Yeah, absolutely. On and off. See you soon, brother. Have a great lesson.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Peace.